Sunday, Nick invites you to have dinner with your favorite detective.
It's about time. I'm out of food.
Tune in for a special hour-long two-part episode of The Mystery Files of Shelby Woo. A phony concert ticket, a hidden map, a threatening letter, a sleazy nightclub owner. Nick's got all the ingredients to help you solve Shelby's most explosive mystery yet. The only thing we've left out is the ketchup.
How can you be out of ketchup?
Tune in to a special two-part episode of Shelby Woo tonight at 6, 5 Central, only on Nick.
Welcome to Splat Attack, a 90s podcast honoring the slime-filled past. I'm your super sleuth, Jordy.
And I'm your daring detective, Alex. Jordy, you called me saying that we had an emergency. What's wrong?
Well, I don't mean to exaggerate, Alex, but I think we have one of the biggest mysteries unfolding right before our very eyes right now.
What could possibly be such a big deal that we have to come over and...
Alex, there's no time to question. All we know is that the Mystery Files of Shelby Woo has been wrapped up in some grand conspiracy. And I believe that there's only a few people on this planet that can actually solve the mystery.
Well, who did you have in mind?
Well, it took some digging and asking around, but I was able to assemble a crack squad of detectives to help us solve this case. Say hello to the team.
Wow, man! Oh, we got Irene Ng and Alan Goodman, Steve Purnick, and Adam Busch, all from Mystery Files of Shelby Woo. This is so awesome. Do you really think that we could all do this together? It's been a while since any of us have tackled a case, let alone something this big.
Not only do I think we can solve this, but by the end of the episode, Alex, I think the whole world will have no choice but to see the answer was just under our noses.
All right. Well, thank you, all of you, for being here for this. It really, I know I've said it before the episode actually started, but it means so much to us. So thank you, all of you, and welcome for being here.
Thank you.
So we've not had the opportunity to really dive into Shelby Woo. We've covered one episode on Patreon one time, and now we're talking about the first two episodes, and it's our first time actually getting to talk with the Shelby Woo cast. So I'm going to ask all of you before we really get into specific questions. What were some of favorite experiences that you all had working on the show?
I have some stories. I don't know that they're necessarily favorites.
Go for it. Go for it.
All right.
We want to hear them.
Watch it.
Yes.
I'm going to tell the arson episode story, Alan. I don't know if you remember this one.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so we went. It was a location shoot. They found a dilapidated house that they were actually going to burn down, and they had fire departments there from about 4 different towns and different fire marshals and fire captains. They were going to actually burn this house down for the arson episode. And we had to sit, and there was a very big meeting about all kinds of safety and safety. It was like a 40-minute meeting with everybody talking. Then we went to rehearse a little scene where Irene and I are jumping out of the window from the inside. And I had to sort of figure out, I was standing on the outside. My stunt coordinator was going to jump out, and then I was going to get up. And we were rehearsing how to get up or whatever. And I'm sort of back against the window and whatever. And all of a sudden, I am engulfed in flame. It goes whoosh, and it's done. After all of this safety stuff, no one was talking to each other, and the special effects guys decided to test the fireball when I was standing right in front of the window. And I was literally engulfed in flame, smelled a little burning hair, but it was gone like that. And everybody just dropped their jaws and looked, and like, that just happened. And so that's maybe my favorite memory of shooting Shelby Woo.
I
my
think
gosh.
I must have blotted that out. I don't remember. I remember being about 60, 70 feet away and feeling the heat of that burning building. So I can just imagine what it must have been like to be, engulfed in it.
Yeah, but it was, that wasn't the burn yet. It was just testing the fireball. It was just, and it was literally split second. But that was pretty crazy.
That's crazy.
Anybody else have a story like that?
Yeah. Mine would be
Can you top that?
alligators. Yeah.
The alligators. I was curious about
Oh,
that.
the
Yeah.
alligator episode.
Yeah. Because I'm usually very timid, but I remember being not so scared and just almost, at one point there was one scene where we were standing and there were real alligators around us. And I remember thinking like, I dare them to do something. but I remembered it for life. I was just like, wow, looking back, I said, I don't know what I was thinking, but it was exciting. Yeah.
Irene, do you remember what happened to me on that shoot?
No. I blotted it out probably.
We had some night scenes in that
Right.
episode.
Yeah.
So we were waiting for day to turn into night. We'd shot, whatever we could shoot during the day, and we were waiting for day to turn into night. So that's when we broke for lunch. And one of the guys at Gator World, which is Gator World, Gatorland?
Gatorland, yeah.
Gatorland. One of the guys at Gatorland says to Chuck Vinson, who was directing that episode, and me, you guys want to ride on the airboat? And we were like, sure. So we get onto this airboat. The director of the episode and the executive producer get onto this airboat. And for people who may not know, there are those boats that have those enormous fans that can go up on land and go across the water, and they use them, in gator infested waters. So we get onto this boat with a guy named Sonny, and Sonny takes us out and never get into a airboat with anybody named Sonny. Okay, we get onto this boat, and he goes zipping across the water, and we're having the grand old time. And suddenly he's having trouble with the steering, and there's this enormous log sticking up, and suddenly he can't turn away from it. We go into it. We go over.
Oh no!
Into the water. There's something like 30 gators in this pond, and we're now in the water. The propeller on this thing has shattered into 1 billion pieces. That's the force that it has when it hits the water. And somehow we pop up, and it's only waist deep, but there's gators. And Sonny says, "Well, follow me." I'm like, "Follow you? You're the reason we're in here.
We're here in the first place, right?"
And this alarm goes off through walkie-talkies back to base camp. Chuck and Alan are in the water. Chuck and Alan are in the alligator-infested water. and one of the guys on the crew takes a boat and starts paddling out to try to reach. I mean, it was all crazy. We were fine, Yeah. But suddenly, anything I wanted from the Gatorland gift shop,
You didn't want one of those gator heads to take home?
They were happy to hand me anything I could grab. And I swore everybody to say, please don't tell anyone this happened, because if my wife finds out, she will kill me. So the next day I drive to the studio, and I park my car, and I'm on my way into the building, and somebody I didn't even know from the other show on the other stage says, no. I heard about Gatorland. And I thought, I better call my wife.
Golly.
Oh, that is crazy. That's a Shelby Woo episode stunt in real life that you're living through.
we had a few. Most of the stunts were not, truly hair raising, but every once in a while, I guess things happen. So. You remember, Irene? Do you remember any stunts that were, particularly concerning?
No,
we kept you pretty safe most of the time.
Yeah, I just remember the gators. Yeah.
So this back in, it's the 90s. It's before cell phones and everybody having a camera. I don't know if you remember a scene in Soap Dish where Sally Field goes to the mall. So Pat Morita, our beautiful Pat, he liked to get a little adulation, and he knew where to do it in town. There was a Hilton on Hotel Plaza Boulevard by Disney that had a Benihana that catered to the visiting Japanese. And this is where he wanted to go. And we all went out to eat to this Japanese restaurant because he knew he would be mobbed. And he knew that everybody would have a camera. And there was karaoke there. Do you remember this? And he went and he got up and he sang karaoke. and he was mobbed by like 200 Japanese people with cameras. Who was there that night?
He actually had kind of a deal with Benihana. He was sort of on the payroll as a representative for them. And so, yes, he did like to go there. They would always take very good care of him. And I remember he ate the shrimp shells, which I had never seen anybody do. They fried them on the flat top thing until they were nice and crispy like crackers. And he would eat the shells, which was brand new to me. I'd never seen that. But I miss him terribly. He was a dear, dear, sweet man. One of the really fun things about rewatching the first 2 episodes in preparation for this was seeing Pat again and remembering how much I loved him and how much I miss him. So that was nice to be in his presence again in some manner.
I still do this thing that he would do. I watched you two. Every once in a while, you would pull him aside and give him some kind of direction, and he would just listen very intently, and then he'd go, "Watch this." And then he'd just walk back to set. So I'll
Watch
do that
this.
sometimes.
Yeah, that was a great little bit. Yeah, I love that.
Adam, any special or favorite moments that you can think of during the show?
I mean, I'm sure my life was also in danger at some point. I just wasn't aware of it at the time. You got to understand, my older brother had dropped out of law school to follow the Grateful Dead around, and then suddenly got a call that he needed to come be my legal guardian in Orlando while we shot this show. So he was available, and it's one of those things where you're a kid in school and you're kind of miserable and you just wish your life could change. And if you were allowed to describe how you would want your life to change, you'd be like, well, I'd love to live in a theme park and just go on rides all day whenever I want. And a wise person would say, well, you're going to get sick of that after a while. And they might be right, but it turns out they're wrong. You never, ever get sick of it. You go on rides every day. And you don't even know, Alan, there was like corporations would rent out the park at night for their events, their like Christmas parties, and they would hire bands to play, like the Allman Brothers or the Neville Brothers. And we used to come back to the park at night, sneak into those corporate parties and hang out with the Neville Brothers, and like just with our little Nickelodeon ID.
I had no idea.
There was not tight security there. Like if you had a badge, they just let you do whatever you wanted. You could walk right up to any ride and say, yeah, I'm shooting at Nickelodeon. They're like, skip the line.
Oh, we skip the line all the time for the rides.
Yeah. And you'd show up to some Comcast party and you'd be like, Nickelodeon. They'd be like, okay. And you could just walk wherever you wanted. No one knew. No one cared. So we were having the greatest time of our lives. You're
talking about you and your brother, right? You and your brother. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Just being there, being tutored instead of school, hearing the tram go by and say, this is where the kids from Nickelodeon are getting schooled, and you'd stick your head out and you'd wave at everybody. It never got old. It was always fun.
So what do we remember about the first 2 episodes?
I remember that was my first time ever being in Cocoa. And I thought Cocoa was just the coolest place.
We were all over the place in those first 2 episodes. We shot in Cocoa Beach. We built that. Remember, we built that shed that falls on Irene. We actually built that. That was constructed for the episode.
I would assume because you brought it down, right? So you had to kind of pre-cut it. I'm assuming, yeah.
We shot at a school. We did a tremendous amount of location shooting.
There was a lot of sets for those 2 episodes. Yeah, it's between the Coco Loco, the street scenes, the pier scenes. The hotel, the bed and breakfast,
CJ's burger joint.
Right.
Yeah, CJ's, right, with Will.
How much do we love Josh Harto? He was so
good.
You know, I don't know if you guys know, the cast members might not even know this. Josh auditioned for Adam's role
originally. Okay,
we had there was a different pilot that was shot with a mostly different cast.
Shelby Wink.
That was the Mystery Files of Shelby Wink, and for a variety of reasons, the network wanted to go ahead with the show, but not with that cast. All of those people went on to wonderful careers, so you know it wasn't devastating for them. But it was when we hadn't cast Adam's part yet for the original pilot, and I had seen him, and I knew I liked him, but he hadn't been cast yet. So we were in Florida auditioning, and we were auditioning also for the part of Noah. And Josh came in, and he kind of nailed it. He was really, really good. And I thought, well, he's. Sorry about these dingings. Somebody's trying to get my attention. So I knew I hadn't cast Adam yet, but I knew I wanted him. But this guy Josh was great. So there was this little part in the original pilot of a kid working at the record store in the mall. And so I said, could you take these pages out and come back in and read this part? And a completely different character. And he came back in and nailed that. And I thought, so then when we went ahead to do the new series, I thought, I have to give this guy a role. He's just too good. And so I came up with the character of what was his, Will? Was that his character?
Will, yeah, Will.
Yeah. So I came up with Will, and to me, he was like, he was like Woody from Cheers. Not really dumb, but literal. Just very literal.
Wait, tell me again. With that plain tea, was it with milk or lemon?
Nothing. It's plain.
Got it.
And we just had so much fun with him. He just played it so, and it's lovely to see how his career took off after that. So I was very happy that I was able to find somebody, locally who could, do so well with, a secondary role, but still one that needed to be vivid and.
He really makes it stand out. Yeah, I mean the lines and his delivery of them. It's always a fun character to have on screen.
There's no rush on settling up for those fries, guys. Just enjoy them. Take your time.
You're going off duty, aren't you?
In like a minute.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we had mentioned earlier that there's a big conspiracy about Mystery Files of Shelby Woo, and by big conspiracy, I mean there's some phony tickets that have been sold. Oh, heaven forbid. No, we don't mean a big conspiracy like everything that's been talked about. No, it's just talking about the episode, because we are looking at the first 2 episodes, as if you couldn't tell from the conversations that we were having with the crew earlier. First 2 episodes of Mystery Files of Shelby Woo, which is Hot Seats and Hot Seats Part 2. Officially. It is from season 1. It is episodes 5 and 6, unless you're looking at the DVD set, in which case it's 1 and 2.
So what do we remember about the first 2 episodes?
Air date was April 14th, 1996. Was written by Alan Goodman. Was directed by Maggie Greenwald. Episode synopsis is, for part 1, the episode starts off as usual with Shelby in the midst of the daily rush at her after-school job as a junior detective at the Cocoa Beach Police Department, as she recounts all of the responsibilities that come with the job, questioning witnesses, handling evidence, fixing shoelaces. She recounts her last mystery where things got a little too close to home for comfort, and she invites us to see if we can figure out the mystery quicker than she did. Challenge accepted. This episode's mystery begins at Coco Loco Club, where Shelby, Cindy, and Noah are about to attend a concert that they bought tickets for, when all of a sudden they get bounced by the bouncer and owner of the club, Krug. It turns out that the decent deal they got on the tickets from the local ticket plug, Benny, may be more indecent than they thought, because the tickets, wonk wonk, are fakes. It's at that time where we are introduced to Benny Boylan, as he's neck deep in an angry crowd of unhappy customers. He is trying to explain that he stands nothing to gain from losing all his customers through fake ticket sales, i.e., no motive, at least for now. After the ordeal at the club, Shelby decides, as she often does, to consult with her grandpa, played by the late great Pat Morita, considering he is a retired, renowned detective, now turned criminal professor slash bed and breakfast owner. It seems the detective's mind skips a generation. He reminds her good detectives never guess, then gives her a gift that came in the mail from her parents back in China. He mentions he slipped her report card in with the last package sent to her parents, and that she needs to remember that she is here for school first, and she can be a detective second. Shelby often finds herself at odds with her daily responsibilities and her dreams of becoming a world-class detective like her grandpa. The next day at the police station, we find Shelby listening in as Detective Hineline is dealing with the owner of the Coco Loco, who is known for a less than stellar reputation. It seems somebody has been breaking in and delivering hate mail. He hands over a letter that reads, "Cancel the Battle of the Bands, or else." After some convincing, Detective Hineline decides that he will look into it. Shelby meets up after with Noah and Cindy to discuss the case further as they are about to head out from work at the Jiffy 1-hour photo. They cruise around to see if they can find any leads when they stumble upon none other than Benny as he's being chased down by more angry customers. They help him hide in the trunk of the car before Noah asks why they are helping him in the first place. Shelby reminds him that Benny is greedy, so therefore he should have no reason to mess up his payday. Benny dishes out who he thinks the perps might be: Krug, the Coco Loco club owner, and his only competition, Betsy Rowan, fellow scalper. She did have the opportunity, after all. When he had his back turned, she could have swapped them easily. So that brings us our three main suspects, Benny, Betsy, and Krug.
As Shelby is mulling over the evidence and clues, she concludes a plan to get the info she needs from Krug, the club owner. But she needs one thing first. She heads to the school newsroom to request a press pass from Kevin, the editor of the paper. As she arrives, he is in the middle of dealing with an electrical issue they had recently that's affecting the printer. After some talking, he decides he will not only help her get a pass, but even help her publish the story if they discover the truth. Later that evening, at the bed and breakfast, the gang is hanging out when all of a sudden, boom! A tear gas canister breaks through the front window, engulfing the room in smoke. The champ himself, Grandpa Woo, runs in, grabs a tear gas canister, and hucks it back out the way it came in. After he calls the police to figure out what's going on. You'd think at this point Shelby would be scared off, but she can't help but want to crack this case. The next step, get to the club and get some answers to this case before it can get any more dangerous. Shelby and Cindy arrive at the Coco Loco and pose as members of the Green Day fan club, trying to scout locations for the next big show. They're able to bait Krug into believing them, and while he goes to get more info for them, they investigate the scene of the crime. That's when the technician mentions that he noticed that the seats that they were looking at were the best seats in the house, but they were sitting empty at the last show, minus one person that he couldn't quite make out. Later that day, they're discussing their findings with Noah when Shelby mentions something just isn't adding up. She thought the tickets Benny had were swapped off and sold to make money, but it seems they never were sold off in the first place, and only one person was using the section that the tickets belonged to. Not to mention, the candy wrapper they found at the scene of the crime shows some strange diagram. At that moment, Benny shows up, worse for wear, when he suddenly has a eureka moment. He knows who did it, or at least he thinks he does. But rather than say who it is, he decides to make the biggest mistake in detectiving, going in alone. He arrives at the storage shed somewhere later that night to investigate his conclusion, only to be kidnapped and mysteriously disappear. Cue episode cliffhanger.
Jordan, you want to ask one of our next questions?
Ask Steve something. He's not with us long.
What have you talked to my doctor?
I do actually have one for you, Steve. So you had this relationship back and forth with Shelby in the show, right? And I always found it so interesting, the dynamic that you had between each other. It was almost kind of like a father figure. but it was also the way you played off of each other. I always found so fun. And I'm just curious, like how you guys, as characters and as co-stars on the show over time, what was that like developing those characters?
I don't know that we ever really discussed it with one another. It just sort of fell into place, and I think we liked each other from jump. I always just found Irene to be so delightful and fun, and she got where I was going, and I got where she was going, and I didn't have a lot to do on the show. I always make the joke that I had the same 2 scenes every show. The stay out of it, Shelby scene, and the we couldn't have done it without you, Shelby scene.
Yep.
It was more than that, but it was fun, and it was, when I had to audition for the part, he was written to be a rather buffoonish at first. Alan will. Yeah, and I came in and decided not to play him that way, to play him like he's perfectly competent. He's just annoyed, and I think that might be what sort of that little different take on him might have been what won me the part.
I think you're right, and I can tell you as a writer, often you adjust the character to suit the actor. And I absolutely felt that was the case with you. And it's interesting, that relationship between the two of you was the one that the freelancers screwed up more than anything. We had a lot of freelance writers on the show. And then Suzanne Collins and James Ponte and I would rewrite everything. And the thing we always had to rewrite were the interactions between your characters, because everybody on just casually viewing it thought that you were an asshole, and that you were always angry with her, and that you were always yelling at her and all of that stuff. And it's actually in the first episode where Adam's character nails it, where somebody says, oh, he's so angry, or so it's because he cares.
Exactly. Yeah.
Detective Hineline gets so mad at me.
Only because he cares.
And that was the part of it that none of the freelancers ever got. There were a series of books that we did also. There were like
I got the books back here as well.
There were like 14 or 15 Shelby Woo books. And I wrote the first one, and Suzanne and James wrote a few. And then they just hired out people to write the rest. And I read 1 or 2 of them, and then I stopped because they were just so off to me. And the thing that was most off was the Shelby Hineline relationship, because they just made him always angry, always gruff, always impatient. And there was a quality of that there, but he really did love her. And he really did kind of see himself as another father figure to her.
And didn't want to see a teenager that I cared about in danger and endangering herself. Like there's parental stuff there,
Yeah, and also, Irene, I would love to hear your take on it as well from the other side, right, of the relationship.
Yeah, no, actually, when you asked what was my favorite part of the show, I almost said was my relationship with Detective Hineline. I don't know. I always enjoyed those scenes. I like that he didn't come across as heavy-handed. It was almost like a avuncular relationship, and I think it helped that we got along so great, like off screen too. So
yeah, I think that definitely shined through in both of you guys playing it. You could see the charisma between you two on screen, and yeah, like you said, like Hineline would get onto Shelby. But there would always be a reason at the end to justify her involvement, right? And it would prove every episode that Shelby is a vital asset to, the detective agency, the police station, right? So yeah, just writing Hineline purely as someone who's upset, I never saw it as that. I always saw it, like you were saying, parentally, as like caring about her and not wanting her to just get into danger, but also, wanting to help build her career, else he wouldn't have her there at the station, right? So I love the dynamic between you two on the show. One of the best.
And was there, going in with developing these characters for the very first time, and this being the first 2 episodes, how much of it how much of yourself did you put into your character, and how much was very specific to that character?
I don't know that I necessarily put a lot of myself into it. I thought the characters were very well drawn right from the beginning. I love sort of the little trio of teens, and and how that Presley's Cindy was just up for anything, and Noah was a little bit more measured in what we should do or not do. They were sort of devil and angel on Shelby's shoulder, which was really nice, and I thought it all just worked.
It made me more social. Like I don't know, I guess I was always studying in real life. I never really had like a tight group of friends. So I mean, looking back, I really cherish that. It was almost like I really had two, really good buddies, when in real life I kind of really didn't.
Does your audience know that Irene was in college while we were making Shelby Woo? She was a Harvard undergrad, basically doing Harvard by correspondence course. Her professors would tape their lectures and mail them to her.
Yes,
so
I would hear about this.
She wasn't acting. She was
in school
studying.
Doing it. Yeah. It's crazy to think that, and it's come up in a few like interviews that I've been able to resurface from the past. One in particular is in this TV guide, which I think you have the full poster for this, Alan, in your office somewhere.
I have it life size. Yeah,
the life size version, exactly. But yeah, I mean, it's an incredible thing to try to balance those two. And that's the thing we hear about almost the most when we talk about some of the main stars on these shows on Nickelodeon, is that it's very difficult to balance the going to school and going and doing acting. And, depending on the show you're on, I think they kind of may care more about you getting that time in with school, or maybe a little bit less, but overall it's an incredible balancing act.
I think the shows tend to take it seriously. I mean, you were in school, Adam, right, through that run?
Yeah, we had amount of hours that we had to do tutoring, and I love tutoring because the teachers from New York would just send this guy named Mark, this like younger dude named Mark, who was my tutor, all of my assignments, and we would just sit and talk. And then at the end of this conversation, I would have learned about history or whatever we were talking about. And then he showed me about this thing called the internet, which I did not know about. But we had a little computer in the trailer where I could get on the internet and talk to friends back home. And it was the wildest thing to me. I could not believe that was real. And I was always dying to get into the tutoring trailer just so I could get on the internet and see what that was about.
Obviously it's Shelby Woo, and this is you were the title character. Did you ever feel any pressure going into the show as the lead character?
Yeah, I did. I definitely did. But the only thing I felt like I could control was just show up and be, like know my lines, So I felt a lot of pressure. I don't think I ever told you this, Alan. The fact that it was changed from Shelby Wink to Shelby Woo, I felt a lot of pressure because like I didn't want the show to not be as popular as it could have been if it was Shelby Wink. So but I knew that was out of my hands, so I just like made sure I knew my lines when I showed up at work.
Irene, was some of that pressure about representing? Because I know that you got a TV Guide cover, and you were supposed to be the first Asian American female to be a lead on a television program. And so did that figure into it at all, racial demographic?
No, it's just that to me, it's so, I mean, Alan was such a pioneer in this. I mean, it was just so, I think unheralded back then, even from first episode, that you would change a mainstream character to a minority character. So because of that, I just felt like, that, gee, I hope I don't mess this one up, and, and that like makes Alan regret or something,
Oh, never for 1 minute. I think there had been, I think I'm right about this. I think Beverly Hills Cop was originally written for 2 white actors, and Eddie Murphy was having such a breakout year on Saturday Night Live that they put him into the movie. I don't think even to this
48
day,
hours. Yes, but 48 hours, not Beverly Hills Cop.
Oh, okay.
48
okay.
hours.
So
please hold that for a second. This is where I'm going to have to go.
Okay.
So I love you guys, but I do have to run. My show starts in a. So I love you. This was so much fun.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Steve.
you for joining us, Steve.
Talk to you soon, Steve.
It was great to meet you.
Oh, I think to this day, there's never been a show that through blind casting chose an Asian actress to be the star when it wasn't originally envisioned that way. And we had she just walked into an audition. We had no idea she was coming. We hadn't prepped for it. And after we saw her, we're like, are we going to do this? Yeah, we're going to do this. She's the best. She's the best we've seen. Let's go. And we had auditioned in Vancouver, in Boston, in New York, in San Francisco, in Los Angeles, in Orlando. We saw 1 million girls to be Shelby. Once we knew it wasn't going to be the original one who did the first pilot, we saw 1 million girls. And it was just clear immediately that Irene was the one we wanted. So, no, I never had a second of doubt that you were the right choice and that we were going to make wonderful shows together.
To this day, I still can't believe it. I mean, it's like incredible. Yeah.
Well, I just am so excited that you decided to audition because, I would think that would be a little daunting going in for something that isn't really written for someone of your nationality. And I have to say that one of the things that I'm most proud of was when we got that award from the
Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund.
Yeah, they're like the NAACP, but for Asians, and they fight very hard for fair working conditions and fair wages and all of that for Asians or people of Asian descent. And they presented us with a nice award one year. And B.D. Wong was the one who introduced us. And the thing that thrilled me was when he said that Shelby was basically a nothing girl. She was just, we didn't play up the fact that she was Asian. There's a couple of references here and there. I think there's one episode where you have a cold and your grandpa makes you juke, right? The Chinese rice soup. And there's a couple of references to the parents back in China here and there. But for the most part, she's just a girl. And by the way, not that great a student. We established that right from the beginning, that she sort of neglects her studies. We really took pains to make her just a regular kid, nothing special, not exotic, not a brainiac, not all of these stereotypes that you see about people who are, Asian. So I was very proud of, even though he said, she's just a nothing girl. I was filled with pride over that because that's what we were striving for.
I asked AI, what is the legacy of the Mystery Files of Shelby Woo, and what do people remember about the show in 2024? And it said, positive impact. The show is remembered fondly for empowering young viewers, particularly girls, by showcasing a strong and intelligent Asian American female lead. Strong female lead. Shelby Woo, a brainy and resourceful teenager, resonated with young viewers, especially girls, who enjoyed seeing a character their age take charge and solve mysteries.
Where are you reading this from?
AI.
Oh, there you go. It
AI
must be true.
Wrong. AI is never wrong. But that is true, though. That is absolutely true.
It could have picked anything in the world, and that's what it focused on, exactly what you just described. So even the machines agree.
Irene, so while we still got you for a bit, what was it like? I know we had mentioned earlier, we were talking about some of the stunts and things like that. Were you ever nervous whenever it came to doing any of the major stunts and stunt coordination outside of having to deal with the crocodiles? alligators?
No, that was the only one that I was nervous about was the gators because I had done ballet for 10 years. So I was, I felt confident in my like physical ability, flexibility, they're professionals, the stunt people. You definitely got the sense that there was a lot of safety net, but the gators, like you said, was one thing I couldn't control. So
what motivated you to want to come out and audition?
I think my agent just said, there's this show, it's the main character, and they said they're casting a wide net. Why don't you try it? So I like the character. Because she's just a regular girl, and she's so curious and inquisitive. So yeah, so I thought, I really like the character. I want to give it a try.
Well, we are going to take a pause for just a moment while we've got everyone still here, and we are going to take a look at what all is going on in the world of Splat Attack, as well as what are some things that these guys have got going on in their world and how we can check them out and support them. So stick around for a few minutes, see what all's going on. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back after these messages.
Thank you all for tuning into this episode of Splat Attack with the cast of Shelby Woo. If you are enjoying this episode, please hit the like button, subscribe, make sure to hit that notification bell. If you are listening on a podcast app, please leave us a review. It's no mystery that these small things on your part make a big impact for us. If you enjoy seeing this crew get together and reminiscing and sharing stories, that's the very thing that we do over on our Patreon. Go to patreon.com/splatattack, where we get together with our patrons twice a month, and we share stories as well as slime streams, as we're calling them now, and bonus content every Friday, along with early access and many other things. So check us out over at patreon.com/splatattack. A real sleuth would have noticed that the entire episode Stickly has been here. And by that, I mean he's on my shirt, because you can find that over on bonfire.com/splatattack /store/splatattack store. We have all kinds of t-shirts there, along with some coffee mugs. A lot of them are Splat Attack inspired, and also several that are inspired from the shows that we know and love, like Stickly. So check out some sweet merch over at bonfire.com/store/splatattack store. Don't forget the hyphens in between. Is there anything that you all would like to plug?
Well, my season is over. I've done 5 shows in 6.5 months.
Now you're over in Florida.
Well, anywhere from like Fort Lauderdale up to West Palm. So I'll be in some other things next year.
Yeah, check out some of the local theaters. Alan has been getting quite a bit of notoriety.
Oh, I have one. So my daughter will be competing in a different age group, but with Simone Biles, Sunisa Lee, May 17th. It's called the US Classic. It's should be televised, but because of her age, she's in the junior section. It's the day before the senior section. So I think you can watch it on, the senior will be on NBC, but the junior, I think it'll be on YouTube TV. I'm not sure, but you can look for her. Just look for someone that looks like me.
And what is her last name?
Rosa, Rosa. Yeah. First name is Alessia. So yeah.
I'm currently on season 3 of a show called PBC. It's an office comedy about tax accountants that work in an office. It has a lot of people from the show The Office on it, and Danny Trejo and John Lovitz, and a lot of like improv comedians. And it's on YouTube Premium and Flowcast, and it is a very improv heavy show where I play a very, very evil vice president of finance.
Tune in next time, Slimesters, when we are going to have yet another cast reunion, and yet again with the cast of Roundhouse. This time we are going to be having an episode battle where we're going to have 2 factions of 2 separate episodes that are going to be pitted up against each other. It's going to be a lot of fun. You will only find the retro-refic action here on Splat Attack. We are going to be over at SplatCon over in LA on October 19th and 20th, and we hope to see you all there. You can go to the SplatCon website and get your tickets. If you put in the code ATTACK10, you will get 10% off of your ticket sales. If you use ATTACK25, you will get $25 off of a hotel bundle. There's going to be lots of celebrities there, lots of 90s Nick fans. It's run by fans for fans. Hope to see you there.
And now, back to the show.
Welcome back, everybody. There's a lot going on. There always is for us, but we've still got quite a bit of episode to go through, and I want to get through as much as we can with this crew while we've got them. But before we ask them some more questions, we have another episode, a part 2 to go through. We pick back up with Shelby at the bed and breakfast, where Detective Hineline is explaining that Benny has gone missing and questioning her about how involved she really is. But since Benny never gave an indication where he was going, she has nothing to give Hineline. Feeling like she needs to do more, she decides enough is enough, and she has to crack this case now. Only thing is, Hineline doesn't want to see her anywhere near the case. Get used to that, because that happens a lot in this series. She runs into Kevin, who is bringing her the press pass from earlier. She tells him what happened since they last spoke, and that because of the clues discovered so far, she has concluded that the perp must have been using the air vents to securely navigate around the club, and that the diagram is really a map of said vents. Kevin decides that he's going to help her get some answers, and he'll use his connections to look into the club's history more. Since Shelby is in hot water with Hineline, she has to convince Cindy and Noah to talk to the next lead for her. They pose as Benny's friends to get into his house to look for clues, but it doesn't seem to convince Benny's little sister. Luckily for them, they were able to grab some photo clues and hint about the Battle of the Bands before they are found out entirely. Not only were they able to find clues, but so was Kevin, the editor. It turns out the owner, Krug, had a partner in running the club originally that was named Joe Rowan, and that they had a falling out that turned out bad for Joe. It seems Joe blames Krug for everything that happened, and that he is likely the father of Betsy Rowan. The gang figures Betsy must be behind this, and was the one who dropped the hate mail in the office and swapped the tickets. Her dad manages local bands now, too, so they must be connected. As for the photo, it looks like it's of a shed that's next to the pier that Benny used to fish at. Shelby heads to the location in question to see if she can find Benny while she waits for Kevin to meet her. While looking around, suddenly the whole floating shed starts coming down with her inside. Not to mention the water is swarming with hungry fish. Luckily, Kevin shows up just in time to save her before she's sleeping with the fishes. Meanwhile, Noah and Cindy are at a recording studio posing as a fake band to get behind the scenes, when all of a sudden Cindy is prompted to warm up the drums by the owner. After all, she is a drummer, or so she claims. Well, that doesn't play out so well when the owner comes down and ends up finding out that they aren't who they say they are, but the owner that they thought was Betsy's dad turns out to be Betsy's mom. Joe was short for Josephine. They cover by lying that they are there because Krug wants Joe to join Battle of the Bands later that night, and that Krug was sorry, but Joe won't hear it, and sends them packing. Cindy and Noah are convinced that Joe is responsible and that Shelby should call Hineline and warn him that something might happen later that night, but Shelby isn't quite convinced yet. Although Joe has a motive, something isn't adding up with the other clues. About that time, Will mentions that what they thought was a diagram of vents is really an electrical diagram. She lays out all the clues in front of her and begins to ponder what the answer must be. At that moment, she realizes the answer and hurries to gather Hineline and get to the club before it's too late. Let's see. Well, actually, I'm hogging the mic. Jordy, you want to ask another one?
In the spirit of Pat, I'm just curious if like a story from each of you, favorite story of a time with Pat on set.
Adam's got somebody he doesn't want to say it.
Did it really read that clearly? Was that because that's exactly what I was thinking? I was weighing the pros and cons of telling this story.
Your smile says everything. We all knew exactly what was going on in your mind.
There was one time we still talk about where we pulled into the lot and Pat jumped on the roof of our car. And my brother was driving and he's got Pat on the roof and he's just holding on to it. We don't know what he was doing or what he was thinking, but Matt didn't know whether he's like, I can't stop. He's going to fly off, but I can't keep driving because I'm going to kill him. What do I do? I didn't know what to tell him. We just slowly coasted to a stop and then he got off. Kept on walking like nothing happened.
I had no idea that ever happened.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good way to get around town, I guess.
My favorite is it was I can't believe this, but we were rehearsing a scene, and then it was what do you call the person who is kind of the main AD who kind of directs everything, like a Virgil. What was
First AD?
First AD. So it was not Virgil. It was someone that we hardly really see, and I guess he's not the most worldly. And we rehearsed the scene, and Adam said to me, "Did you hear that?" I said, "What?" He said, "He just called Pat Mr. Mitsubishi or something." I said, "No." He said, "Yes, I heard him." He said, "Mr. because they would call him Mr. Morita." I said, "Mr. Mitsubishi."
Oh no.
Oh gosh.
I don't know if Pat heard it, but knowing him, he wouldn't have cared.
Well, I got to go with my story of when we got struck.
It was that day that he jumped on the car.
Oh, you're kidding.
That was the day. I think he had just been told and we hadn't, so he was like, fuck it.
So we got struck, and we had sort of known we shot 2 shows at a time. So we were halfway through shooting episodes 7 and 8 when the crew struck the show, and we tried to peter along for about a week after that with replacement crew. We were getting absolutely nothing done. We had film school students. It was a disaster. We were getting nothing done. And Pat was flying into town. And I told you guys in another episode that the way we worked with Pat, the way we were able to afford to work with Pat, is he would fly in for 2 days in the middle of a 2-episode shoot. We did 2 episodes at a time. He would fly in halfway through. We'd shoot out all of his scenes for 2 episodes, and then we'd send him back to Vegas. So Pat was arriving, and I thought I better go see him and tell him what's going on, because, this is an Academy Award-winning movies. This is a guy, he's not used to this kind of crap. So I go to his hotel, and I'm walking in, and he's sitting at the bar, and Pat enjoyed a cocktail in his life. So he's sitting at the bar with a cocktail glass in front of him, and he just watches me walk up. I've had just the worst week of my life at that point. And he just watches me walk up, and I get to him where he's sitting. He says, "So you wanted to be a big time producer, huh?" And I had the first laugh I had all week. He just cracked me up so hard. It was such exactly the right thing to say to me. And we sat down, and I told him what was going on and how messed up it was and how everybody in the cast hated me. I don't know if you remember, Irene, you all hated me by then. It was just, everything was horrible. And I said, I can't guarantee you that we're going to shoot anything tomorrow. I mean, we've been getting nothing done. He says to me, "Alan, I've shot from the hip before, and I will again." And he shows up the next day, and I guess jumped on your car. and he was putting on silly hats, and he was goosing all the girls, and he was doing all of that, silly Pat stuff. And he just completely lightened the mood. Everybody was so tense and so furious. And he just, brought up all of his clown skills to bear. And, we still got next to nothing done. And within a couple of days, shut it all down in Florida. But for that day, I was just so happy that Pat Morita was in my life, because he made that day much better than it might have been otherwise.
What was the I was going to ask something specific about these two episodes, but I keep going to a broad what's the word I'm looking, a broad net. But did you ever get any fan reactions? Anyone come up to you and recognize who you were and just point out, "Oh, it's Shelby Woo," and did you have any cool fan encounters?
Oh, yes. When I was in Malaysia, which is my home country, I was in IKEA and just waiting for my uncle to finish his furniture shopping. And this boy just like stopped, in the middle and like, was just like couldn't move. And, it's just, that was, it was so cute. Like he couldn't talk, he couldn't, it was just like this. And then years, I was in banking already. Years later, I was outside of a New York City apartment waiting for my friend. And this teenage boy stopped in the middle of his tracks and pointed to me and said, "You're Shelby Woo." Yes, I am.
You've not aged a day.
Yeah, you look almost identical to the day you shot those episodes. It's crazy.
Yeah. Absolutely true. Yeah. Unlike me. I look like my grandfather.
Oh, no. The stunts were a big part of the show, and we kind of touched on them already, but I'm curious, Alan, and if anybody else wants to chime in, obviously, but what was it like on a weekly kids show trying to coordinate stunts like this? Because it's not like an adult program. Like obviously you have safety parameters and people, but you want to be double redundant with things, triple redundant with things when you have, younger cast around. So I'm curious, what was that like? Like, did you take inspirations from TV you were watching that week or throughout the weeks and be like, I want to work these kind of action scenes into the next episode? Or was the script kind of dictating based off the mystery your action?
Well, it was always dictated by the mystery, but we took a lot of painstaking care with the stunts. They were an important part of every episode. We worked on them pretty hard. We had a stunt coordinator for every episode. We had stunt men and stunt women for every episode. So, when you see Shelby and Hineline jump out of the window of the burning building, it's not them, it's stunt people. When we drop a car on her, which we did in one of the Montreal shows, she's nowhere near where that's happening. When she's hanging off a moving train, the camera's doing this, the train is not actually moving. So we worked them out so that they were safe, but they became an important part of every episode. And I think you're right. The show benefits a lot from them and gives it a lot of production value. I had a meeting actually a couple of years later. I don't know, while we were still shooting it, actually, I had a meeting at Castle Rock. The guys who produced Seinfeld and all of Rob Reiner's movies and a bunch of other stuff. And I'm sitting with the president of Castle Rock. He said to me, "I just have one question. How do you do it?" Like he couldn't figure out how on a cable TV budget we were producing the kind of show that we were producing. And I had a simple answer. I said, "I don't get paid what you get paid." That's largely salaries is a big part of it. But no, they were important. We worked hard on them, and I think they really brought the production value up in every episode. Adam, what were yours? I'm trying to remember what stunts you were involved in. Did you have any big stunts that you had to do?
Remember that the person who was my stunt man was Indiana Jones in the Indiana Jones show, and I thought that was so cool.
the Young Indiana Jones series.
Mm-hmm. No,
yeah,
in the
Epcot
ride or
MGM Hollywood Studios.
The actual live show.
A lot of our actors. The reason why we had a pretty good stable of day players in Orlando was because of Disney and Universal. There were always plenty of actors around. And I was actually, when I watched the first 2 episodes back, I was impressed by the quality of the acting of the day players who were in the, you guys I was always confident about. But the kid who played Benny, the ticket scalper, he was a damn good actor. The kid who played the newspaper editor, Kevin, also really, and even the girl who played Betsy, the rival ticket scalper.
Yes,
I think she's got like 7-8 lines.
She was great.
Yeah, the delivery is great too.
But she really established a character, and she was really,
Yo, Toad Boy, are you calling me stupid?
No, I'm just saying that if you didn't, that I would.
It doesn't matter. Bye-bye.
You have to leave?
No, you do.
They were all really pretty. Even, who I loved, I completely forgot about this when I watched it. The drunk janitor.
Yes,
the janitor. Yes, the janitor. I'm not supposed
to be in this part of the building. He was hysterical.
I'm not cleaning up that mess. It's not my job. Saturday. I hate working on Saturday. I'm not even supposed to be in this part of the building.
He was so good.
Saturday, I hate
like
working
3
Saturdays.
lines. He was so good.
Yes, Isaac, who has, I think, the first line of the episode, he's the big cop. He just has a really deep voice.
File it, don't read it.
And he went on to do tons of films and lots of stunt work.
Yeah, he's in Anger Management. He's the guy in Anger Management who tells him, calm down when he's being completely calm. Isaac was great. Should we tell our Isaac standing in for Shelby story since we're all here?
Yes, you should.
Please do.
I don't even know if Irene knows this. There was the episode that we shot with Suzanne's husband as the villain. It was the dolphin mystery. And early in the show, in one of the first scenes of the show, they're passing around a photograph of the guy who is the lead suspect who's been, I don't even remember what the crime was. Were they smuggling? What were they? I can't remember.
Stolen
I think it was.
But in any case, they pass this photo around, and everybody takes a look at it. And it gets to Isaac, who is just one of the cops in the precinct. And there's a close-up of the photo in Isaac's hand, and the suspect's face is circled in red. Later, and we don't know it's him because he's in the photograph, he's bearded, and in the show, he was clean shaven, but he hurts his arm and he can't shave. So during the course of the episode, his beard is growing in. Okay. So there's this point right at that moment where she says, I got it. I know who did it, which was, in every episode. She's holding the photo. I wasn't on the set that day, and they never shot the picture in Irene's hand. We had no shot of that. And I said to the editor, pull the shot of it when it's in Isaac's hand. Irene is, what are you, 5'1", 5'2"?
Oh, no.
Isaac is like 6'7" and a heavily muscled black man, right? I said, take the shot of the photo in Isaac's hand. And the editor's like, but his hand is in it. I said, listen to me. It's a handheld camera, so it's doing this. Okay. The guy's head is circled in red. So my eye is going to go to that. We'll cut away from it before my mind registers anything else. And I swear to you, Mr. Editor, if you say nothing and if I say nothing, no one will ever know. And we cut it into the show, and no one made a peep about it. And did I tell you this story during the podcast last time? I can't remember if I told this story.
I don't
or
recall
if I
this
told
one.
it to you privately. But we never have. I mean, this may be only the second time in history that this has been revealed.
Oh my gosh!
But that was the time that Isaac stood in for you, Irene.
Man, that's great.
The
Hey,
secret Easter egg.
Yeah.
we got
People can go
somebody
back
coming
and
back
look
in.
at that episode. Oh, Steve's back.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
Awesome.
Steve has returned.
Hey, Steve has returned.
Well, just before we wrap up with our last few questions with the crew, Jordy, why don't you read out the last portion of this episode for us?
I'd be happy to. We pick back up at the club where the police have the place surrounded and everyone evacuated. When Shelby runs into Kevin, right as she's about to tell him she knows who did it, there's a fiery explosion at the club. It turns out it was Kevin all along. The police grab him and Shelby lays out the details for everyone to hear. You see, Kevin knows about electricity from learning under his father, and the seats at the nightclub of the first incident were right in front of the engineer stand. So, first clue. When Shelby showed Kevin the vent diagram earlier, he should have known what it was, but he lied and played dumb. And the second clue. The fake ticket and the flyer for the event were from the same damaged printer as the press pass he gave her earlier, hence the matching smudges on all three items. And finally, the motive. Benny hated the music at the club. He thought they played loud, annoying music that never cared about the actual music itself, and felt that they never actually gave him the chance to play his music there. If he couldn't play, no one would. Oh, and Benny, he was in another storage shed the whole time at the pier. He's fine, just a little hungry since he ran out of food right before the cops found him. And with that, we have another solved case under the discography of Detective Shelby Woo.
Adam, I was going to ask you because, and I may have asked you this when we did a one-on-one, but with all, because you've done a lot of studio produced things, what was it like doing things on set, or not on set, but on location?
You got to understand, this was I had an idea of what Nickelodeon was before I got there. I watched it like everyone my age. And then you show up and this was not a Nickelodeon show because of Alan. This was the first director was Fred Keller, who's a filmmaker who does like New York Undercover. And then it was Maggie Greenwald, who's a filmmaker who did The Ballad of Little Joe, and Chuck Vinson, and Irene, our star. I knew her from the Joy Luck Club, where she's doing this incredible dramatic work, like as far from Nickelodeon as you would imagine. And I was going to Lee Strasberg in New York at the time, taking it very seriously. Josh Hardo was in art school at West Palm Beach, taking it very seriously. So all of these people are very serious people that are coming to Orlando to do this light children's comedy, but no one's treating it like a light children's comedy. We're taking it very, very seriously. And I loved that. I also got jealous sometimes of what was happening next door because the other stage would open their door and you would just hear like, it's the Brad. And then everyone's cheering, yelling, and then it would close. And then you'd open our door and they'd be like, all right, move the clue a little to the left.
Adam, I wonder if you remember this. Frequently, we had two stages, and we were on one stage, and then whatever. Often it was Kenan and Kel or something like that on the other stage. And I remember Adam and I were once speculating whether all of the nonsense that you would hear on Kenan and Kel was actually scripted, like blah, whoa, which would go on for like minutes. And I remember we were speculating one day whether they just did that or whether it was actually written into the script. There was this little corridor of a room maybe there was coffee in there or something. I can't remember, but it was all these mail slots, and it was shared by both productions. And you would have your slot, and that's where your revision pages would show up. In a TV show, they're always revising, and you'd get pink and then green and then yellow, and then you would get all these different colored pages rather than reprint the whole script. You'd get revision pages. So one day I went in there and I saw that Keenan and Kel, or whatever it was, had gotten their revision pages, and I pulled one out, and sure enough, it's all written into the screen.
Imagine writing for that.
I've always wondered because they're so energetic, especially Kel. I've always wondered how much was just him making things up and how much was actually scripted.
I'm sure they brought
way.
a lot to it. It was
the tutoring trailer was the same place that we would do, all the shows would do their table reads. And one day we had to be in tutoring while Keenan and Kel were doing their table reads. So they split the trailer in half with a little divider. So we were trying to go to school while they were doing their table read, and their table read was exactly like you described. It was just like Saturday Night Live, everyone hooting and hollering and yelling, and sounds and sound effects you don't know where they're coming from. And our table reads, you could hear the sound of the page being turned. It's a very different world.
Do you guys remember that for the second season they hired a gag writer? They insisted
what?
Employ a yeah, they didn't. They just loved monkeying with that show, with our show. The network always had great ideas, and what people don't realize is that a TV show is like an inflatable raft with too many people in it, and and it's precarious just at the outset. And then the network people show up with long pointy poles, and they start sticking their long pointy poles into your inflatable boat, and then they're like, this thing can't float.
Yeah. What's wrong with you? Why can't you?
They've done everything they can do, to poke holes. So in season 2, they hired a very, very funny writer who had hit shows on Nickelodeon. Nothing against the writer; he was terrific. And I had written sitcoms. I mean, I did Clarissa, I did Hey Dude. It's not like I didn't know how to write gags. It's just it wasn't that kind of show. And he kept trying to put these buttons on every scene that were like these joke buttons that just didn't go. And we sort of suffered through 3 or 4 episodes. And I went back to Nickelodeon and said, I got to fire this guy. I mean, he's wonderful, but he's just on the wrong show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's what you got Adam for. I mean, you don't need the gags. You just need that type of personality, that dry wit.
It was all situational, whatever the situation called for.
Very much.
And there were plenty of jokes in it. It was certainly, lighthearted. So.
Yeah, but you don't want to undercut the seriousness, right, of the other scenes coming on. If you put a joke in every scene, then, the serious scenes become less serious.
I should say Noah doing a Sean Connery impression and then pulling out a stuffed otter at one point and saying Grand Theft Otter, her. I mean, things like that.
Grand Theft Otter, her.
Just little situational things that he would point out. They were my favorite. Noah was my favorite character.
Yes, Noah is fun.
But I loved the show. I love the show. I did have a question. Hey, my first episode specific question, because we've been talking about the series as a whole. The show opens and closes bookended with a shoe, with Detective Hinine's shoe quite literally thrown at Shelby Woo. Was that a conscious decision as a kind of a wink of being a gumshoe?
Oh, I don't think so, but
because that's what I took from it. It's like, oh, she's a gumshoe.
And I think that being the first episodes we shot, I don't think he treats her that disrespectfully after that. I think that was the first. We were still often, pilots are hard. and you don't always have it all entirely figured out yet. And so that was a little more broad and disrespectful than I think we ever made him again.
I learned my lesson.
What would be so fun is if I don't even cut you coming back in until this moment. We keep you leaving, and then you just pop up. I learned my lesson right there for this moment.
When did that guy get here?
Jordy, any other questions that you would like to ask?
Yeah, so I do have one. I have one for Adam/Noah. You had the one episode where you did two characters at the same time. The mirroring kind of effect, I assume, is what you guys used to pull it off.
Soon. Shelby, come on, I'm starving. How did that guy ever get us confused? I mean, why do they think that we look alike? I have no idea.
What was it like to act against yourself but not be in the room with yourself while acting against yourself?
I saw an interview with Michael Richards, and they asked him, well, yeah, he has regrets, but they asked if he has any regrets about his time on Seinfeld, if he would have done anything different. And he says immediately, I wish I had more fun. I took it so seriously. I think I took it too seriously, and I just wished I would have let my guard down and have a little more fun. And if you watch any of the Seinfeld behind the scenes stuff, you can see that very clearly. Someone will break or laugh, and he's
upset. He's upset when they break. Yeah, you see that. You're absolutely right.
I'm gonna get a 4x4 and beat you with it. You know how funny that was, pulling out a piece of lint?
Of course,
you see
I know.
What I'm saying? The magic's here. The magic's here.
And I remember I was determined that the other Noah had to have an accent, and I was not good at doing accents and had no idea at the time. So it was like a battle over, something had to be right and proper. And there was a very, very clear right and wrong at the time. Now it's all very blurred, and I feel like I was being a little too rigid. But with all of that, I'd wished I'd just had a little more fun or relaxed a little bit and just enjoy the experience. Do you know what I'm saying? And that's definitely an episode where that comes to mind. I'm sure I was taking it too seriously and not having enough fun, because it's funny with sitcoms and stuff. Like, if there's a scene on a sitcom where you have to cry, if you really cry, it doesn't work very well.
Yeah.
It doesn't. It's fascinating. Like, I've seen it in real time, and somebody who's pretending for a sitcom, for a multicam, it just works better. It all works. There were things I was looking back now. I love Strasberg, and I believe in their teachings very deeply, and I still believe in it and teach it to this day. But there are cult-like aspects to anything that says you study this and you study this only, and you don't listen to anyone or anything else. So it took me a while to learn, that's actually not true at all. You steal what you like from everything and ignore what you don't like from everything, and you create your own religion. So there were certain right and wrong things that I wished I did not take as seriously, and I think it would have improved not just my own enjoyment, but the work itself.
You certainly made it fun for all of us. I'm sorry you weren't having a fun time.
I was having the time of my life. I was this miserable kid in Long Island who was living my dream that never got old. But within that, there's perspective. This is a children's television show. Calm down. Get yourself together.
No, I remember that about Adam, that he took the craft so seriously.
Yeah.
I felt almost like an imposter.
Well, it's a professional job, and you really want to make sure that I feel very much the same way, Adam, that I wish I had been looser. I'm a loose improv guy, and I've brought that to other things. And I always wished, when I look back at these, that I wish I'd been a looser version of myself and just a little more free to play and do those, all of those Anchorman style. Let's do one just for us kind of those things. Yeah.
But Pat certainly brought that.
I was just gonna say, but Pat definitely, yeah.
Oh, he always had a twinkle in his eye, in everything he did. There was always that lightness there. But it's interesting what you say about real crying versus fake crying. Now that I'm acting, I have found that I have to be completely different on stage than what I'm used to from TV. Because, you know, in TV, because the camera's this close, you don't do anything. You know, you just, you think and it shows, you know, you're just in the scene. I was rehearsing a scene for the first musical I did a few months ago, and I'm acting with this other actor, and we're just going through it, and it dawned on me, this guy is almost a Muppet with how he's performing this. I gotta bring it up. I gotta do more than I'm used to. And when you think about it, you know, the stage is 30, 40 feet. They could be looking over there. They're not even going to see what I'm doing unless it's big enough for them to see what I'm doing. And I found myself being drawn into a style that would have been completely inappropriate in a TV show. You just have to sort of make that adjustment depending on, you know, whatever the media.
There's a thing with sitcoms that I wished I'd realized earlier, and it's just that no matter how bad the situation the character is in, Noah's freaking out about this, he's scared about this, he's worried about his life, and it was always very real to me. But it can't ever be so bad because your friends are there. Your best friends are right there. And it's like you were saying earlier, it's a choice they're all making to be these friends. It's a choice that Hineline made to have Shelby around. If he didn't want her around, she wouldn't be around. If Noah didn't like hanging out with these people, if he actually felt like his life was in danger, he'd say goodbye. Good night. I'm going to go home. So you're there because of friendship and because of that love. And I think that's something Alan always knew and always was the heart of the show, even if I didn't know it.
So I got to point out one of the things in this particular episode, especially part 2, that I really liked was the relationship that you and Press Lisa had, especially whenever you went into the club, and because usually Noah is the one that's kind of the butt of the joke, but in this particular instance, we got to see where Noah had pointed out, oh yes, she's a drummer. And then we got to watch these amazing drumming skills, and then just watch Noah go, oh yes, you should see her with a real drum set.
Oh, that is awesome. Oh, you guys should hear her on her own kit. I mean, oof.
And she played along, and then she flipped it right back onto Noah and was like, why don't you tell the truth, the real truth? And I love just that the dynamic that you and Press Lisa had. I mean, yes, we see that relationship very much with the main trio, but it's with the whole cast, and even then it breaks up. Like, I think we see Adam and Press Lisa together, but we don't really get to see the two of them with just Steve, with Detective Hineline. We don't get to see them, but that's not the relationship. That's still very much at the heart of it is Shelby Woo. But I love the dynamic of friendship and how each one is just a little different.
I know I was away for a little while. Have we talked about what a natural Press Lisa was? What ease she had on screen? I mean, that she was just terrific.
Incredible job. Yes, yeah. I mean, all of you, honestly, incredible jobs. I mean, you were bringing like top level performances, but like you were saying, Adam, to a kids TV show, but still, I mean, it shined through, and it's still appreciated till this day. But
you don't want to feel the acting. You know, you just want to feel the character. The one actor in the two-parter who I felt was kind of in a different show was the guy who played the club owner. I always
Health complaints, noise complaints, unpaid bills, licensing violations. You want me to go on?
Yeah, so nobody's perfect. Look, I need some help here.
And it's nothing, nothing against his talent. He does a fine job, and he was certainly oily and all of that. But it was just, if there was one acting thing that I could enjoy seeing be pulled back a little bit, he was the one person who felt like he's in some other show.
You were talking about the day players earlier, and I was going to say you typically get either somebody who's really over the top or someone who's just they're there. It's very rare to find those performers that.
And by the way, you see that you'd see that in Columbo too. You know, you'd see there's episodes of Columbo where the day players are like, "What is this guy doing? Does he know what show he's in? This is way too over the top."
And Irene, on a Nickelodeon related thing, because I know you're gonna have to leave very soon, but I had got to speak with Adam about this quite a bit, and I'd actually like to ask Steve this later. How much, I should say, what was your experience of doing Figure It Out?
Mm-hmm.
Well, my biggest memory of that show was Summer Sanders and Lori Beth. Oh my gosh, I felt so like it was way out of my league. I mean, it was like a different way of like figuring things out, and I was trying so hard, and even Lori Beth was like, you could tell Irene is like trying to apply what she's learned in college. I laughed so bad. So I didn't really enjoy that because it was on a different wavelength.
Because that's very different from all like what you were just talking about being part of the Nickelodeon chaos, and you guys were very removed from that, and you were own little separate thing, and then you were all thrust into that world for this one show, like the entire cast was. Preslesa was there as well. Steve, what do you remember of doing Figure It Out?
It's very interesting. I for years have remembered it sort of that way, that I wish that's another one. I wish I was looser. I wish I had more of that high energy game show thing going on. And then my friend Josh Siniscalco like found one recently, and I got to watch it, and I was like, well, I'm not that bad. I'm actually hanging in there with Tamborelli, and I was having a good time. I got slimed a couple of times. It was a blast. I would have done it again and again. Yeah.
Alan, would you have wanted to be a panelist on Figure It Out if they asked you?
It doesn't take a lot to get me out on stage. I'm a pretty natural ham. So yeah, sure, I would have done it, but nobody cares about the producers. They want to see the actors.
Yeah, but yeah, I get that, but at the same time, like you have that fun, vibrant personality and wonderful storyteller and very insightful. Like, you would have been great at that show too.
Well, maybe in another life. Who knows? Maybe that's next for me. Now that I'm acting, maybe I'll be a game show panelist next.
Well, I'm going to pass the buck to you one more time, Jordy, for one more final question with this amazing group of people.
Yeah, and I think this is a good question to leave it off on, since we're all the way these years later in the future. So you guys have probably seen that there's been reboots of Are You Afraid of the Dark and Legends and Rugrats all over the past few years. Do you think Shelby Woo would ever get a reboot? And if it did, do you think it would maintain the same charm that it did in the 90s?
So would it be with younger actors? Because I tell you, my daughter looks just like me. And Alan, you missed this, but she's one of 20 junior elite gymnasts in the country.
No way!
Yeah, so she could do all the stunts herself. You could save money on stunts.
Oh my gosh!
And she acts just like me. I mean, my best friend's like, "There's your mini me," you know.
Well, Irene, I want to catch up with you after this is all over because I've missed too much of your life.
Alex, you got to understand, we were big parts of each other's lives for a very long time, even for a long time after the show. And we probably think about each other often, all of these years. But it's difficult the way life is. You don't reach out. You don't do those things you want to and need to. It takes someone like you, like both of you, with just a specific perspective and the motivation and the desire, and it takes some random person that we don't know in a heartbeat can bring us all together. Something that we've never been motivated to do on our own, that we want to, but it takes someone with the confidence and just that perspective to make it happen. So we're very grateful for you and for your passion for this, and that you made all of this happen and brought us all together. And anyone else out there, if you have a specific thing that you are a fan of, even if you're embarrassed about it or you don't know anyone else that's into it, hold on to it. Hold on tighter, because you're not just going to improve your life, but you might improve the lives of all the people that you're a fan of and become friends. And I'm just so grateful you brought us all together.
Well said. Well said. Totally agree.
Well, thank you all so much. You all have a wonderful night.
Yes,
again,
thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
It was wonderful meeting you all.
Love you, people.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, we'll keep in touch.
This has been so much fun to have these people here and share stories and learn more about the making of and just their experiences with the network itself. But as far as this set of episodes specifically, we will go into our rankings of each. And for those who are listening for the first time, we rate all of our episodes kind of like a report card, A through F. But for we have a tier above that. So we have S, double S, and triple S. All of them have a Splat title, but essentially the ranking is still virtually the same. So because this is your baby, Jordy, I know this Shelby Woo is yours. As much as I love it, dude, yeah, as long as I've known you, this has been your favorite. So we'll start with you. What is your ranking for Hot Seats 1 and 2?
So I'm going to give this one an SS, which is a Splat standing rating. And the reason why is really because not only is it great performances from everybody, but it's the first two-parter of the series. And it really sets the tone of like the level that they can achieve within the show. And it's a great precursor for the rest of the seasons to come. So in my opinion, this is Splat standing.
And I'm going to agree with you. I'm also going to put it as a double S. If you've not seen Shelby Woo, or it's been a long time since you've seen it, check these two episodes out for a few reasons. One, the story is pretty solid, and it's always a tricky thing of how do you write a mystery for children where there is some danger but not absolute peril. It's a very, very fine line to balance, and Alan has said it's one of the hardest shows he's ever written for, if not the hardest show that he's ever written for. And it was his show. And he said in our episode today that it was the hardest thing he's ever done professionally because it's such a difficult thing to write for. But I think this episode really threaded that needle of finding something that kids would relate to, because all kids have gone to a concert and there's always the scalpers and all that nonsense. That was still a very big thing back in that time period. And I also love how they absolutely nailed the relationships between everybody, which is something I went into detail a bit more previously in this episode, especially between Cindy and Noah. I really like those two and the dynamic that they played together. And I also like that Adam had pointed out very clearly, as Alan mentioned, that he knows why Detective Hineline is always quite literally on Shelby Woo's case. But it's a very good series. These two episodes are top tier as far as Shelby Woo goes. It has humor. It has a real sense of danger a couple of times. They have pyrotechnics. They've got a collapsing set. They've got fun story. They got fun characters. This is absolute top tier Shelby Woo.
Can't forget those animal actors.
Yeah, and as we talked about earlier, you got the club owner and and his over the top sincerity with everything. He's like one of those actors that you see. He reminds me of Sykes. I think that was his name. From The Mask. He's this older guy, but his hair is still long. It's balding on top, but he's still got the ponytail. That's what it reminded me of. He wore that business suit in whatever that city was called. That really nasty city. I forgot what it was called now. But anyway.
Yeah.
Well,
oh man, yeah, it's the greasy club owner, the greasy boss guy. Yeah, but he takes it a little bit too far for his character's level of scope in that episode.
Well, I mean, everyone has to take it a little too far. It's Shelby Woo. The red herring has always got to be a little over the top.
The red herring's got to be screaming from the top of the roof.
The attention is here. Well, as our last segment for the episode, Jordy has compiled a say what of quotes, and we're going to see how many I can remember. So we'll see what happens. Ready for say what?
Say what?
Say what?
Say what?
Say what?
Say
what?
All right, so I'm going to hand the mic over to Jordy, and he's going to quiz my brain and see how well I do.
All right, so starting up, we got the 1 point questions, 1 point quotes, more so.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see how you do.
Aye.
Question 1. Please don't talk about crime in front of the guest. Who said that?
That is an easy one. That is Mr. Woo. That was Pat Morita. Right as the guest was, she was saying there's something. It's a horrible crime, and he starts to please don't talk about it in front of the guests.
You got it. Ding ding ding.
Shelby, please don't talk about crime in front of guests.
It is none other than Mike Woo.
Mike Wazowski.
Or as we like to call him off screen, Mr. Miyagi.
Or Mr. Mitsubishi.
Yeah, Mr. Mitsubishi. Oh man, what a story. All right. So we're coming up number 2. Who said this? If I didn't have so much respect for your grandfather, I'd charge you right now.
That was Detective Hineline.
Ding, ding, ding. None other than.
You know, if it wasn't for the respect that I have for your grandfather, I would charge you right now with, you know what, why don't I just call him?
I do love that line. I love that moment. It's kind of a rare thing to see when other characters have respect for what was his name? Mike?
Yeah, Mike. In the show.
Yeah. I was trying to think character name, but it's because usually you just see the kids with Mr. Woo. You don't really see him with other adult characters, and that stood out to me when the detective would show respect for him.
Yeah, there's a few moments throughout the series where he makes the references to that. A big reason why he let Shelby start interning in the first place is, because of the connections with Mike. And I mean, he is a world-class detective. He's just retired now. Okay, so number 3. Here's your change. Unless, of course, it's my tip. In which case, thank you.
That was, we talked about him earlier at length a bit. That was Will over at the burger joint.
Yep, CJ's Burger, yep.
Here's your change. Unless, of course, it's my tip, which in that case, thanks.
You got it, it's Will. Joshua Hardo, and his real life name.
Joshua Sardo.
Joshua Sardo. By the way, I don't know this. If anybody knows this, maybe they don't. He is in The Dark Knight, and he's also in
was he
Iron Man 1 and Iron Man 3.
Was he the accountant who tried to blackmail Batman on The Dark Knight?
I think he's one of the business guys at the beginning that's talking with Bruce Wayne. Like the shady other business guys in Gotham. Yeah, I think he plays one of them.
I think that was him. Yeah,
and he has a reoccurring character in the Iron Man franchise. He's 1 and 3. He's in that.
I forget which one that is.
Oh yeah, I'm terrible with the background characters' names in Marvel movies. But when you see, I mean, you saw his face in the episode. It hasn't changed so much as he's grown up, but you'll see him and you'll be like, okay, I recognize that character from Iron Man. But remembering names is hard for the background characters. But yeah, he went off to do some great stuff. Like they said, he's a very talented actor. All right, so let's jump into the next set of 2-point questions. Don't listen to this girl. She's a bad influence on you. Smoke bomb, window, remember?
That's my boy. It's Noah.
That is Noah.
Don't listen to this girl. She's a bad influence on you. Smoke bomb window, remember?
Oh man, I loved it. It's so. I always hear. What was it? Warren? No, Warren. I always hear Warren from Buffy with him every time, and so many of these lines of his lines are very Joss Whedon-esque because they're those real quippy things.
Yes, the quippiness is what I love about him. His delivery is always so good. I love at the when they're trying to convince Joe that they're a band, and Cindy plays the drums, and then they get caught. She tries to give her explanation. You know, I saw sticks, drums. I thought, why not? She looks at him, and he's just like, got nothing to add to that.
Oh gosh, I love that character so much.
He's so good at it. All right. Next question. This is in response to Noah saying, how do you run out of ketchup? You see, people eat a lot of ketchup, and when we don't reorder it, we run out.
There was Woody again from Cheers. That was Will.
Yep, that's Will again. Exactly.
How can you be out of ketchup?
Right. Well, you see, people eat a lot of it, and when we don't reorder it, we run out.
Yeah, he has too many good lines they give him. Every time he says anything, you want to take it down.
I wish he was in more episodes.
Yes, they bring it back, a few times, but
a few, not nearly as often.
Yes, yeah. I wish he was a more reoccurring character. Okay, next question, or next quote. When you asked us if we wanted to play, I thought sticks, drums, why not?
That was Cindy. Press Lisa.
Cindy.
But when you asked us if we wanted to play, I thought sticks, drums, why not?
Good. Yeah, I kind of gave away the answer on that one a little bit earlier.
That's
but all
okay.
of it said.
That's okay. We were referencing it earlier too.
It's true. All right, next one. It's about time I'm out of food.
That one I don't know.
All right, so that was Benny.
It's about time. I'm out of food.
That was one of his last lines of the episode.
Oh, okay.
Benny Boylan, yeah, the scalper.
Yeah.
Okay, and then next quote. Is this conversation leading anywhere? Like maybe money changing hands? Otherwise, get out of here.
What was it he says after? Is like, are you going somewhere? No, you are. That was the Betsy.
Yep, there you go, Betsy. Yep, you got it.
Is this conversation leading anywhere, maybe toward like money changing hands? Because if not, you need to vanish because you're crowding my spot.
The other rival scalper.
Scalper, daughter of Joe. Yeah, she does a great job. Yeah,
She was great. I would have liked to have seen her be a recurring character too.
All right, you gotta get out of here. Why, you gotta be somewhere? No, you do.
So many good quippy lines in this episode, and both of them.
Yeah.
Oh gosh,
it's good writing, and I believe we have one man to attribute a lot of that writing to for that episode. All right, next quote, and the final quote. So you're not really up against anybody, but you got a flawless score so far, except for the Benny question. I'm not cleaning up that mess. It's not my job. Saturday, I hate working Saturdays. I'm not even supposed to be in the part of the building.
Oh gosh, that was the janitor at the very end.
Yep, that's the janitor.
I'm not even supposed to be in this part of the building.
Oh my gosh, and he's just credited as janitor, custodian, I believe, in the actual credits. And I want that. I wish he was a reoccurring character. Where was he for the entire series? He needed to be once an episode.
Okay, I don't know if this is an intentional thing or not. It has to be intentional. But Secret World of Alex Mack. almost everybody in that show has played real straight lace. Almost everybody. There were a few characters that got a little more bonkers as the series progressed, but right out the gate, at I think in the first episode, when she goes to school for the first time, junior high or high school, I think it was junior high, and they're having lunch outside. They're all sitting at picnic tables outside, and the lunch monitor is just lecturing all of them about being too loud. They really played it very militarian, like low camera angles, chiseled shoulders, chiseled chin, and I can't hear you, and these kinds of things. Real big, and they did this a couple of times in the series where it was school was very military type with these big, very strong personalities, which really is big contrast. I just imagine the custodian from this in that world where he has to work with these really militant people and like, I don't want to work. I don't want to work on Saturday. I shouldn't have to be here. Just the complete contrast. The complete contrast. Just putting in my headcanon those two together is too much fun for me.
Man. I'd love to believe that. I'll make that my headcanon as well. He's the secret janitor of the secret world of Alex Mack.
One janitor. One janitor. That's why he's so tired. That's why he doesn't want to be there. No, we've also got the other one who works for the lab. I can't think of the name.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
But
they only work at the lab.
he works at all the schools. This custodian works at all the schools. Just one set of schools in all of Pleasant Valley or Paradise Valley. But
all right, so yeah, pretty much a flawless score except for the Benny Boylan question.
All right.
I would tally your points, but you're not against anybody, so
well, if you're watching the episode, you'll see the score on the screen. So yay, there's my score. There's my high score. But that was fun. There were some good quotes in these episodes. Oh gosh, anything, just a whole slew of Noah quotes and I'll be set.
Yeah, my restraint from only putting Noah and Will quotes and the janitor, the custodian, obviously.
I forgot how funny Will was because I binged watched this whole series in 2020, just after Jensen was born, because I wasn't. It wasn't because of COVID or anything. It was because I just had a son, and I was having to get up at 2-4 o'clock in the morning, like 2-3 times a night. And then I would put on Hey Dude, and I watched all of Hey Dude. And then I put on Secret World of Alex Mack, and I watched all of Alex Mack and Pete. And Shelby Woo was one of them. I watched all of those. And because there were so many shows I missed, so many episodes of this I missed when I was a kid. And going back and rewatching it again, I really enjoyed it. But I forgot just how much I enjoyed Will throughout the first two seasons. I think it's mostly season one. I don't think he's in season two very much.
Not to my recollection, but he may have popped up other times. But yeah, he was definitely mostly a character in season one. They were, I guess, figuring out like who's going to be consistent, who's not going to be a consistent character, kind of thing. But yeah, man, he just brought so much to the table at that role. And like, yeah, you come back to it, you watch, and it's almost like when you're watching it all at once, you're looking at the bigger picture, right, of all of the show together, right? Then when you can go back in on one episode, you can really just highlight lines, and you really notice his lines are like, wow, they gave him like all the good quips, the coffee maker line, the tip line.
It's almost like he would grow up and become Chandler from Friends.
Yes, he has that Chandler type of personality, especially. Yes, I love that. Yeah,
very, very, like I said, very literal and not playing it for laughs at all. But that's what makes it so funny, is they're so deadpan.
Yeah, and like Adam was saying, or was it Adam that said it, or was it? I can't remember which one of them was talking about it, but they were saying that they didn't want. No, it was Alan that said it. Actually, it was Alan that said it. Yeah. Because it was about the writing. They didn't want to write him as a dumb character. Originally, they maybe was a little bit dumb, but then they're like, no, we want him to be not dumb, but just like, straight line delivery kind of man, and like, yeah, I love that.
Well, Slimesters, I hope you enjoyed this episode going into Shelby Woo for the first time on our main timeline. It was great to have the cast here. I will say, now that the episode is almost over, we did have one cast member who was going to be here, but unfortunately we had a lot of scheduling changes and she was unable to be here. However, we do plan to be covering more Shelby Woo in the future, and we hope to have even more cast members come out. So hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Before we end the episode, though, we have to have our closing question. Our closing question for the episode is, which of the mystery files had you playing detective the most in your head, and why? Write to us via email at splatattack2021@gmail.com, or you can DM us on Instagram or Facebook at Splatattack Podcast. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel at Splatattack Podcast. Leave us a comment down below. Interact with us on all of our socials. We're pretty versatile. We're always happy to hear from you guys. We love what we do, and we love hearing from you. Until next time, Jordy, will you help me with the missing sign letters for our new sign next season? I swear we had them sitting just over there, but now they seem to have disappeared.
Oh no. Well, it seems like we have a new mystery on our hands to solve now. Before the next season, let's get to the bottom of this.
Oh, here. Get my Splat Attack guitar out.
Oh, yes.
Meet Shelby Woo, Nickelodeon's first kid detective.
I want to check it out.
She gathers the clues. She questions the suspects. She earns the admiration of her friends at the police station.
No more investigating. I mean it.
There's just one small problem.
I have to do all the good stuff when nobody's looking.
Think you can crack the case along with Shelby? Then check out The Files, the mystery files of Shelby Woo. Sunday at 6, 5 Central.
Only on Nick.